In this video, I want to talk to you all and hopefully be able to help you all out deciding on is the new CFmoto Ibex 450 or 450 MT the right bike for you? Should you go out and pick it? Is it going to suit your needs? Hence the reason I have two of my other bikes out here, being the Africa Twin and then the SCL 500. I know a lot of you are asking, like, SCL 500, like, what does that have to do with any of this? Well, if you've been watching my coverage on this, I've done so many good mods. Even though it's more or less a street bike, I am building it out to off-road. We've done suspension, protection. Just go watch the videos. It's super fun. Got a lot more coverage on us. We'll do some BDRs on it and everything. But anyways, I'm building it out for an off-road, and I use it for off-roading. So it's more or less the Honda 500 platform, comparing it to the 450 over here. So you kind of think of it as like maybe CB 500 or the NX 500. And the other thing I want to let you all know about before we start talking about this topic is I don't script any of my videos. I don't even really ever take notes. Maybe occasionally here and there, but no script. I just come out here and start talking. It's my passion, right? I just nerd out in front of the camera with you guys, and so do my hands. But anyways, let's go on and get into talking about if this new CFmoto 450 is the right bike for you. And I think the best place to start is talking about what kind of rider you are. Are you a beginner rider? Just as motorcycles in general, right? You can class it as like ADV or off-road or stuff, but let's just talk motorcycles in general, right? The other thing I think we should talk about is that, are you new to off-roading? Not so much motorcycles, but off-roading. And then I think the last thing we need to talk about is someone like me that has a variety of motorcycles that can tour and off-road and, you know, kick around town. So where does this really sit? I want to start with that first one. As a beginner rider, a first motorcycle, is the Ibex 450 a good first motorcycle? And believe it or not, I'm gonna say yes, definitely yes for sure. The seat height with the stock seat is very low. It's very manageable. You're gonna hear a lot of people talk about snatchy throttle. I don't notice it. Again, I've used multiple bikes before, and this doesn't feel any different. It's just nice and natural. You don't got like that snatchy throttle of a 300L or a Honda 300L Rally. You don't have that type of feel here. It feels pretty darn linear and smooth right with the motion of my hand. But as a new rider, this could still be a bigger bike, right? You might be thinking like, oh, let me just get a dual sport and I'll be perfectly fine. Maybe even an SCL 500 as a first bike, right? It's maybe a little bit more easy to handle. Doesn't feel so big like you're up in the cockpit, you know? But I will tell you, the SCL 500 feels a whole lot more heavy than this. Not saying this is a light bike, but I feel like as a beginner rider, starting with something down here in the 450 range, the clutch feels good, the throttle feels good, everything just feels very well and defined. And would I say forgiving? I don't know, right? That's probably the one biggest question a lot of us ask about it being a CFmoto. Is it forgiving? A Chinese bike, right? I don't know much about CFmoto. This is my first one. But as initial feel and sitting on it, comparing and thinking about the competition out there, I think this would be a great first bike. The other options you might want to put on your list as a first bike would be a Royal Enfield Himalayan. Those things are so easy to handle. I had one of the older versions. I haven't tried the new one yet, but that is a great first bike option for sure. The reason I would probably point you more in the direction of the CFmoto is I feel like you have progression into it, right? I feel like you top out on the Royal Enfield Himalayan, the older one. The newer one, again, I can't speak on yet, but I feel like you'd be like, all right, I'm ready for the next upgrade. I feel like this is gonna get you through that beginner stage and then take you into learning off-roading and still be a versatile tool in the lineup of your bikes that you have, you know? But I think this is a good machine that will gradually get you to where you want to get in, maybe eventually to an Africa Twin or a BMW or Triumph, something like that. Now, the next question I want to answer is one that I think will be on a lot of people's minds. It would definitely be on mine if I was out shopping this bike, and that is this a first good ADV bike? So we just talked about first bike in general, right? First rider going to get your license and stuff. But now I want to talk about your first ADV bike. Not so much just a, you know, spaceship looking bike, but something that you intend to actually utilize off-road as an ADV bike. I think I want to say yes, but I would probably say get a dual sport first, right? Get a 300L or a 250 or whatever the heck they are out there. There's so many options to choose from. And I think those will be a lot more forgiving. If you get stuck in a pickle, it's going to be so much easier to get out. Again, this is a small ADV bike. That's why it's hyped up so much, but it's still around 430 pounds, 450, something like that. You put stuff on it, so it's even heavier. So yeah, it's still a big ADV bike, no Africa Twin by any means, and you really notice that moving around the garage. Like the Africa Twin is so much heavier than this. So yes, it's light compared to that, but it's still a heavy bike. So keep that in mind. And the reason that comes into play, you might be thinking, oh, it's a heavy bike, so if I drop it off road and by myself, I can't lift it up. It's not really that. It's more or less, in my eyes, like if you get in a sticky situation, you're doing a water crossing or something like that, or you got some mounds, you want to be able to walk your bike over that situation. At least that's what I like doing, right? All right, let me just put it in first gear and I'm just going to go through it nice and gently. I don't got to, gun through it and get all crazy. So can I handle the bike in those situations? That's for me when I think about a lightweight bike. Like if I get in a sticky situation with the Africa Twin, I've learned to just jump off it and let the bike do what it does. You know what I mean? But with a smaller dual sport 300L or something like that, you can truly get through any of those situations as a newbie without being too worried. You know, if you want something lower, get the 300LS or something like that, and you just walk it through and you're like, geez, this is a cakewalk. Do that for 6 months or a year, sell it, and then maybe upgrade to this. So would I recommend someone to go with this as their very first off-road bike? I think I would ask, what kind of off-road are you doing? How often are you going to off-road? And where do you have to go to off-road? Maybe you're like, oh man, I want to get my first off-road bike and go bang out a BDR, That's where I think you might get to the point of not enjoying it because you're just going to jump right on it. Everyone's saying it's a small, lightweight bike that we've all been wanting. Then you get out there and be like, yeah, this thing is still pretty heavy. I would tell that first off-road rider to start off with a dual sport. They don't cost much. You can get them cheaper than this bike. And I think you'll all around have a better time. But again, if you're someone that's got to drive far, and it's going to be your one motorcycle that you're just going to kick around town and hit the fire roads here and there, then hands down, heck yes, I think this will be perfectly fine. I don't see anybody getting themselves in trouble. It's 450. Yeah, it's got enough power, passing power and stuff, but I always felt in control on it. Never felt myself tending to almost get into a pickle with it. And the third question I want to answer here, which is definitely one that resonates with me big time, right, is where does it sit in the lineup? If you're like me and you have an Africa Twin, you got a BMW, you got a Triumph Tiger 900, you got a Tenere 700, where does the Ibex 450 sit in that lineup, But even for me, more talking about the Africa Twin and the SCL, which again, sure, it's a street bike, but I'm building it out to off-roading, and I'm going to do everything on the SCL that I will do on the CFmoto 450. Probably do 90% of the stuff I'll do on the 450 that I'll do on the Africa Twin. So when you think about it like that, where does it sit for someone like me? And if you're in my shoes with this kind of lineup, honestly, doesn't really fit in my lineup. And that's not me knocking the bike. Don't take my words wrong. This bike is amazing. I've done so much coverage on it and swore by it top to bottom in every single one of those videos. But for me, again, I love my Africa Twin. That's going to be a bike I always have. Not that one, but when I get new ones when they come out. But I love big ADV bikes that I can just bang out some miles on, slap that cruise control. I'm perfectly fine. I got enough power to do whatever I want. And then the SCL, that's just a passion of mine. I've put so much work into it. I got a connection to that bike. I can't even sell that bike and make my money back with everything I've put into it, from front and rear suspension, the whole nine, That bike is like a custom bike I'm connected with now. For me, it's the bike I find myself not wanting to ride as much, right? So it sounds like I'm hating on the bike, right? And again, like I stated before, that's not what I'm doing here. But if I go on long miles, or if I'm going, 200 to 400 miles, I want to take the Africa Twin. That's just what I want to do. If I'm kicking around town, maybe hitting some fire roads, I want to take the SCL. I kind of sit here, ask myself, well, why would I take the Ibex? What can't I do on these two bikes that I would do on the Ibex 450? I honestly think a dedicated dual sport would even fit better in my personal lineup, right? Say if I even went Africa Twin SCL 500, and then Ibex and Dual Sport, I'd still be in the same category here, right? Like, I don't think I would be riding the Ibex 450 much, but I can separate it as, again, Africa Twin SCL, kicking around town, touring long distance, and then a dedicated Dual Sport getting lost in the woods and treating it like a dirt bike, you know what I mean? So if you stuck through this video, I'm sure many of you could guess, if you've been around my channel for a while, yes, I am about to part with this bike. I am about to sell it. I haven't listed it yet. I don't know if I want to do one more video or just, again, kind of be done with it, as I covered everything on this bike. So much stuff, from windshields, protections, off-road ride, bags, tons of stuff we covered on this bike. And again, the only other thing I personally would be interested in is that long-term ownership, which I think a lot of you would as well. And when I say long-term, I'm talking like 10,000, 20,000 miles. I really want to know how it, holds up. Not 5,000 or 6,000. I want 10,000 or above, And for me, as through the video, I don't catch myself riding it, well, I'll never get there. So it's just sitting in my garage collecting pollen right now, you know what I mean? I hope my coverage was helpful and beneficial for you, and I hope this video was able to help you out. If you got any other questions, ask right down below. Shoot me a DM on Instagram for sure. I love talking shop. Like, seriously, I can just sit there and talk bikes all day long, you know what I mean? So again, thank you all so much for coming around for this, and I hope to see you in the other videos.